Welcome to
the Plant-Based Podcast.
In case you didn't know already, plants are amazing. You can
eat them,
wear them,
drink them,
nourish your skin with them,
grow them,
love them,
and be inspired by them. So why not join us on the Plant-Based Podcast as we speak to the movers, shakers, and growers in this amazing plant world.
This episode of the Plant-Based Podcast is brought to you by our friends at Natural Grower. Launched in 2019, their award-winning liquid fertiliser and soil conditioner is made entirely from maize. Visit naturalgrower.co.uk to nurture your soil and boost your plants and veg. Enter PBP15 for a 15% discount as a PBP subscriber.
Hi everyone, how are you all doing? I hope you are enjoying your gardens and allotments at this time. I even hear that there's been some rain after a period of lots of sun and very dry weather. Well, one thing that's been amazing throughout the whole lockdown period is how many more people have decided to take up gardening and growing their own. So this episode is all about gardening for beginners. So it's breaking it down to some really easy plants to grow that Michael's going to be talking about in the second part of this episode. And I'm just going to debunk some of those words that as a beginner can be a little bit tricky to know what they actually mean. So we fling around loads of gardening terms, but actually if you take yourself all the way back to the beginning, you probably didn't know what they were yourself. So I can always remember thinning out, and I always used to think, but thinning out is something the hairdresser does to my hair. So I had no idea what it meant years and years ago. So for those of us who are more experienced gardeners, this is a great reminder as well. It's a good reminder of some of those terms, but also a good reminder that we can pass on our experience and we can debunk some myths and we can encourage and educate and inspire new people into gardening to love it, get involved with it, join the online community, which is an amazing place to be. So this one is for all of you beginner gardeners, and it's for all of you experienced gardeners as well, so that we can all come together and help new people to enjoy gardening. So I'm just going to run through some terms that we use in gardening, some words that we use, the absolute basics here. But one thing I'm going to say, if you are a beginner gardener listening to this, please don't think that the experts know it all, because it's just not true. It's not even possible to know it all, because new words and new phrases are formed, new ways of gardening are found, new research, new technology comes out. Plants even get renamed because they get recategorized sometimes as well as science progresses. So it's a never-ending learning curve, and it's one of the best things that you can possibly do for you and your well-being. And, well, as you know, Michael and I just love it. So absolutely back to the very basics then. Words that we use in gardening that newbie gardeners may not know about. So first of all, what's an annual? An annual is a plant, well, that it finishes its whole lifespan in 1 year. So it means that you will plant it, it will flower, and you remove it and compost it, and then you will replant the following year. Then, of course, there's perennials, and a perennial is a plant that flowers for years. They can be evergreen. They may die back to the ground. So don't worry if you bought something and it's like what it looks like it's died off over the winter, but actually it just means everything's died off above the ground, and that underneath it's working really hard to store energy and rejuvenate itself in order to flower again the following year, and it will do that year after year. And then of course there's the biennial plants as well, which is a plant that basically completes its full life cycle in 2 growing seasons. So it produces its foliage and leaves like in the first, and then it will flower in the second. So when you start sowing your seeds, Some of these terms I think can be actually quite confusing, understanding what's what. So what does germinate mean? Well, germinating it's like the beginning of the growth in seeds. So it's just as the seed pops open, a tiny, 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 tiny little shoot appears. It's that action of sprouting or shooting. It's above the soil, and it happens whenever a plant or seed begins to vegetate into leafy little plants. It's the cutest stage, and it's the most exciting stage, because when you've sown your seeds and you look at them 20 times a day like me, even though you know that they're not going to germinate for weeks, when it does germinate, it's so exciting. So don't forget that different seeds germinate at different speeds. So don't worry if yours hasn't germinated in a week or 10 days or even 21 days or even longer for some. Nature will do its thing. Often I see lots of seeds popping up on social media, and that can make you think that yours should be as well, but it doesn't mean that yours will be. There's different conditions, may even be different compost, all kinds of different things. Maybe you sowed a few days later. I mean, who knows? The seed is a different seed from a different supplier, a different variety. I mean, who knows? It could be numerous different things. So that's germination. And the next thing I already mentioned is thinning out. Like I said, I have really long, big hair. And I always remember the hairdresser saying to me, "Do you want it to be thinned out?" Well, so when I can always remember when I started gardening many, many years ago, like, well, what does thinning out mean then exactly? Like just chopping into the foliage or something? But thinning out, of course, is just removing the weaker seedlings. So often you will sow lots of seeds, and then you basically have to choose which ones you're going to keep, because they'll need spacing and they need room and air around the plants in order to grow. So thinning out is kind of removing some of those teeny tiny little seedlings. Okay, so what's another one? Another one will be damping off. Damping off. I mean, what on earth does that mean? Damping or dampen off. Well, usually when you think of that, it's like using water and spraying it or something, like damping down. Damping off is basically how young seedlings die kind of at the base when they've got a fungal kind of attack. It's often the result of overwatering, heat and overwatering, and that's something to think about when you're sowing seeds. Quite often I just use a sprayer and I don't put too much water. You want to keep the soil moist but not soaking wet. So that's damping off. And the next thing you might do is, as your seedlings grow and the roots are expanding, they're going to need more room, so you'll be potting them on. And that is basically removing the seedling and potting it to another pot. And if it's something like tomatoes, for example, you might pot them up 3 or 4 times before they're actually in their final pot. So that's potting on. What would you do after potting on? After potting on, you'd be hardening off. Hardening off is making sure that your plants are acclimatizing to the outside world. So if you're growing them in a cold frame or indoors or in a greenhouse, you want them to be able to cope with the weather conditions outside, or at least give them a good chance. If you take them just from indoors and put them straight outdoors, they're going to really struggle with that temperature and climatic difference. So hardening off can be really over the course of 1 to 2 weeks. And you would just put them outside in the day and bring them in at night, and then maybe leave them out overnight when you have access to them, so you can bring them in quickly if you really need to. Keep an eye on the weather. All gardeners are crazy weather checkers like me. So that's hardening off. So transplanting is often used as well. That's basically moving a plant from one growing medium to another. You'll be planting them out next. So planting out is exactly what it says. You'll be taking them out of the pots and planting them out to their final position. I do remember a question about sowing seeds before, about sowing them indoors or sowing them outside, like direct sowing. So direct sowing is sowing them exactly where they are going to grow outside. And often it will be the case that those seeds will be after the last frosts. Although if you've sown previous autumn, lots of things will overwinter and grow the next year. But often if you're sowing directly outside, it will be after the last frost. But that's direct sowing. So there's a few other terms that we use, and this one really makes me laugh. It's hummus. Hummus. Michael will laugh. He always says I live off hummus. Well, hummus is a kind of, it's actually a dark, loamy earth, and it's great kind of like earth that is amazing to grow in. It's not the kind of hummus that you put on pita bread and eat for a snack or something, but it's beautiful, wonderful, loamy earth. So a few other things: companion planting. So that's using plants to help each other grow instead of kind of competing against each other. So there's lots of plants that work really well together, and then there's some plants that you wouldn't necessarily grow in the same space. And this is something you just learn as you go on. And I know in years gone by, I've paid no attention to companion planting, and I've never, I don't think in any year, had any problem ever growing any crops whatsoever. But companion planting can be really good for helping ensure that you don't get pests and diseases. There's lots of reasons why companion planting is very, very good that I'm not going to go into here. But if you have a look, it's awesome. Like marigolds and tomatoes. Marigolds help to keep aphids off tomatoes and all kinds of other things. But yeah, that's companion planting. So it's plants that work really well together. But please don't get caught too much up in that when you're just starting to grow. Just give it a go and enjoy it and learn as you go along. Another one, of course, is mulch. Well, mulch is just a material such as things like wood chips or grass clippings, straw, compost, anything that you can spread over the surface of the soil around the plants, because that helps to retain moisture and also really good for controlling weeds. Another one that is quite often used is bolt. Like, what does bolt mean? Like, my plant's bolted. What does that mean? It basically means it's a plant that's gone to seed too soon. So it's once it's gone to seed, generally there's not going to be any more energy for it in order to grow the vegetables or fruit or whatever it is that you're growing. So yeah, that's kind of bolting. It's like bolted, like Usain Bolt. Gone in one. A cover crop. A cover crop is something that we sprinkle like seeds, like green manure, over the soil over autumn and winter time, because it protects the soil. It helps to put nutrients back into the soil. It stops weeds from growing. It looks quite nice because it's not just kind of the bare soil then. It's quite good for wildlife and stuff as well. So that's a cover crop. And another thing, of course, which is quite scary for beginner gardeners sometimes, is deadheading. So deadheading is basically removing like flowers that have gone over, or flower heads because they don't look any good anymore, or they're like damaged or diseased or just finished flowering. And the more you deadhead, usually the more you can prolong like the blooming period. So the more you deadhead, more flowers will come. And by doing that, you can actually extend the flowering season for many plants much, much longer. So deadheading is a really top job for a gardener to be doing. And lots of people quite worry about deadheading. Oh, where do I trim it? Where do I cut it? You know, just chop it off. Don't worry about it. So there's a few words that we use in gardening to help you out. And you know, it's great to learn, and there's so much resource online. The gardening community is brilliant. There's loads of amazing books as well. But don't ever feel pressured to do what everyone else is doing. You don't have to have your seeds sown in February because other people have, or you don't worry if you're going to sow them a little bit later because you've been really busy, or if someone is pruning something or topping something out, or which is basically pinching out the top, like chopping off the top of a plant, don't, like the main stem, don't worry about that. You know, learn from it and decide whether you can do it, if you'd like to do it if you've got time to do it, and just don't worry about it. Don't feel pressured, and have an amazing time, because if you were a beginner gardener, taking up gardening, that's it for you now. You're going to be a gardener forever. So with that, Michael is now going to be giving you some amazingly brilliant, easy plants to grow that you are going to love.
This episode of the Plant-Based Podcast is brought to you by our friends at Natural Grower. Visit naturalgrower.co.uk to nurture your soil and boost your plants and veg.
Hey, how's it going, guys? So Ellen's talked about some of the kind of basic gardening tips, which is absolutely fabulous, because all too often there are gardening experts out there that throw out all of these kind of confusing phrases, kind of methodology, which kind of doesn't mean much to beginners. And I think you can really panic sometimes and think, oh, I need to know this, this and this, and I need to be an expert with this before I can even attempt to do anything to do with gardening. But that is not the case. So hopefully Ellen's section has put your mind at ease a little bit. But once you've kind of exercised your green fingers, you're ready to plant some plants into your garden, your outdoor space, what type of plants would you choose for those areas? Well, there's some great information on my website, which is mrplantgeek.com. Follow the What Plant Where section and you'll find suggestions for plants for dry, sunny gardens, kind of damp shade, all of those kind of awkward spots. But in this part of the episode here, I'm going to run through a few of the suggestions that you guys came up with on social media. So this obviously is great for crowd knowledge, because these are really the plants that people grow and the plants that people know perform as well. And there's some common names on there. So there's a few things that are the usual suspects, which is great because that really proves that they do work. But I'm going to chat through them, tell you who suggested those, and give a few variety suggestions as well, and ideas on where you would plant them, because it's not so easy as saying, oh, this is an easy plant to grow in whatever garden you've got. It's really not that easy unless you're growing a Buddleja. A Buddleja will grow anywhere, even where you don't want it to. Anyway, let's have a little look at this list. So starting off, we've got hardy geraniums. Now they were suggested by Christine Smith and Marie Longdon, and in particular they talked about Roseanne. Now Roseanne is a variety that was selected just outside Dis by the Bloom family, and that has been around for maybe 25 years now. It is an absolutely fantastic plant. It spreads very well, so it will cover a nice big space in your garden, but it doesn't grow through suckers. So it actually branches rather than kind of roots all around your garden. So it's a much better, well-behaved geranium than some of the previous varieties. The colour is incredible. It is azure blue, and this plant is so popular, and it's grown in amenity planting, kind of you see it in parks and gardens, and that is really a testament to the fact that this is a really good doer. So that is geranium Roseanne. But don't draw the line at Roseanne when you're choosing geraniums. So how about looking out for some macrorrhizum types? They're really interesting because they have lovely, lovely pink blooms, but also fragrant foliage too. Really, really cool plants. Also for rockeries, how about geranium sanguineum? This is a really cool plant that I remember from my childhood, actually. My grandma had a really nice pink one. Lots and lots of new varieties available of that. Great for gravel gardens, tumbling over walls, even growing amongst the walls as well. But how about something a bit taller? What about some of the Pratense types? They tend to be about 2 foot tall. Johnson's Blue is one that my grandma used to grow. But since then, there are some new double flowered types. So I really like Double Jewel. And there's a white one I can't remember the name of as well. So look out for some of the double flowered Pratense varieties that flower for a lot longer and are really, really gorgeous. Hardy geraniums are going to grow in any type of soil. So if you've got dry, damp, grow them in sun or shade, they are pretty much indestructible. They often say if you can kill a geranium, you should give up gardening. Good challenge, huh? But equally, if you're looking for annuals, so perhaps you're looking for something for a sunny patio or balcony pots or basket, geraniums, again, are then the usual suspects. But this is not a hardy geranium. This is actually a pelargonium. So that is your kind of annual geranium that comes in all of these lovely reds, pinks, all of those vibrant colours. So look for trailing types, which are Pelargonium peltatum, varieties such as the Balcon varieties, Gerainbow, which is a series that I named as well. Or you could look at zonal geraniums. Now, these are the upright ones that have the markings on the foliage. The varieties available these days are just amazing. There are double-flowered varieties, crested, ones with picotees as well. So have a look for geraniums if you've got a sunny position. If you want to try petunias, you can, but bear in mind that petunias are a lot more thirsty than geraniums, so they will need a bit more water and a bit more feed as well. They tend to turn a bit yellow during the middle of the summer when they start to lack phosphorus. So make sure that you're feeding your petunias a lot during the summer months. But how about if you've got a shady corner of the patio and you want a few annuals, a few patio plants? Then your choices are begonias, which are available in a myriad of colours, forms. They're weatherproof as well. They flower for 5 months of the year. You might think they're a little bit grandma, but personally, I cannot recommend begonias enough. They are bloody fantastic. Also fuchsias. Fuchsias love a shady corner of the garden. In fact, when you put fuchsias in full sun, they often tend to wilt and kind of generally look unhappy. So yes, fuchsias are great for the shade. And we had a suggestion from Bev Pixley, who said hardy fuchsias are really great for beginners. And she's absolutely right. Hardy fuchsias as hedging. I really like a variety called Hawk's Head. There's also a nice variety called Lady Bacon. The flowers are actually the colours of bacon as well, red and white striped, but it's named after a lady, not a meat. Okay, next up, lavender. Now this is one that was suggested by Anna Davis and Debbie Barnes. Now lavender is fun, easy to grow, but you've got to choose the variety well, because some lavenders can get woody, leggy very quickly and they haven't got that longevity. So go for a newer variety such as Phenomenal, which has got really nice branching, really nice habit to it. Or try something a bit different like French lavender. French lavender can be a little bit tricky though. They don't like to be too wet at the base. So make sure that you always water your French lavender from below if you are growing those in patio pots. Equally, what about trying some different colours of lavender? Now, I really like some of the pinks, the whites. Every year at the flower shows, I see the Downderry stand where they have some really incredible different types of lavender out there. So lavender love Mediterranean conditions. The hotter, the drier it is, the happier they are, and the richer their fragrance too. Now, we had a suggestion on succulents. Now, succulents are usually indoor plants, but there are a range of outdoor succulents that you can grow. So look for sedum. There's a new range called Sun Sparklers. Also sempervivum, also known as house leek. They work very well outside in rockeries, anywhere that there's good sharp drainage. So all of those dry sunny banks, all of those awkward little spots, perhaps even, amongst the pathway or in a patio pot that you'll forget to water during the summer. Plant some sedum or sempervivum in there. They will forgive you. As will plants like osteosperms as well, the Cape Daisy. Look out for those. Some really lovely high resolution colours as well. You'll need your sunglasses. Next up, this is something that's for a very interesting time of year as well. So this is from Lara Hurley, and she suggests hellebores. Now hellebores bloom from January through to around April, and they tend to be very useful for dry shade, kind of beneath trees, shrubs. They tend to hide their blooms though, so if you are growing hellebores, I would always remove the foliage just before they come up to bud. That way the foliage won't be hiding those blooms. But still, many of the older varieties do hang down. So if you do want to enjoy those blooms, maybe consider cutting a few and floating them in water indoors. But Hellebores are a great suggestion. The breeding has come on leaps and bounds in the last few years. Double-flowered Picotee are almost commonplace now. They used to be kind of myths of the gardening world, but they are now widely available. Look out also for primrose colours that are quite rare, and slaty blue. Very, very nice. So next up, yes, a few people suggested Buddleja, and I'd say yes, but only if you choose a manageable one. Buddleja Buzz is a much shorter variety. This is only about 3 foot tall. No, I tell a lie, maybe 4 foot tall. It does depend on the richness of your soil. The richer the soil, the bigger your Buddleja will grow, the harder it will be to maintain and keep in control. So make sure that you're taking advantage of all those dry, sunny areas, kind of awkward soils in order to grow your Buddlejas in. But they can be great space fillers. They're very easy. You can never screw up the pruning because cut them back to the base and they always bounce back. But look out for some slightly different varieties. So I've mentioned Buddleja Buzz, which is a lot smaller, more compact than the standard types. How about looking at Buddleja Wisteria Lane, which is one that gently cascades, has a really, really beautiful form. Or going a bit posh and looking for a Buddleja called Weyeriana, which is a yellow flowered one. Or Sungold, which is yellow-orange flowered but globe-shaped. So kind of look for some different types of Buddleja out there. They are available and they attract a lot of species of butterfly to the garden. So a couple more suggestions before I talk through a few of my own suggestions. We've got Julie Goodwin has suggested an apple tree. Now, apple tree, she says, gives year-long interest. Obviously, you've got the beautiful branches in the winter. You've then got the spring blossom, the crops, autumn colour on some apples as well. Yeah, good choice. Insect heaven and food at the end, she says. Lastly, we've got Tony Emma Stokes, who says a rose. Rose, absolutely. There's one for every single aspect. You've got climbing, rambling, dwarf, flower fairy is a great ground cover rose. Yes, and it's edible as well. I always like an edible flower in the garden. So I had a few suggestions as well, a few plants that you normally wouldn't have come across. So how about grasses? A lot of people turn their nose up at grasses, but grasses can be ornamental. They can give you like so many seasons of interest as well. They've got form, they've got shape, they've got texture, they've got everything I love in a plant, and they work really nicely alongside flowering plants too. Few more plants to kind of bear in mind is sedum as well, which we've mentioned. I'm a big fan of the gold foliaged Angelina. That is a really nice plant for a rockery or sunny bank or mixed patio pot too. Also, Senecio Angel Wings. Now this is a really soft touch perennial. It's only come onto the market in the last couple of years and it's really taken the market by storm. Really, really incredible plant, silver coloured, kind of mix it up in your containers or plant it into a well-drained border. Very, very cool plant, and I've seen some awesome plantings of this all around the world. Echinops. I love an echinops. They're much underrated, but they're so easy to grow. They're great for coastal gardens. Once you get past the fact that they look a bit like a thistle, you will fall in love with them because the globe flowers are in this rich azure blue as well. Really great plant. I also love Phyllictrum. They're really useful for awkward, moist, shady corners, as are Astrantia. Now these are a couple of really great shade lovers that add form, texture, and something a little bit different and almost a bit fairy tale as well, which is a look that I really like in a border. Couple more. So Verbena bonariensis is so overused. I get a bit bored of that, but there's a newer dwarf variety called Royal Dreams, and this is actually just a couple of feet tall and a lot more versatile. So look out for that and see if you can establish that as a bit of a butterfly buffet in your garden. And then lastly, one that is a great bee buffet is Syrinfe. I really enjoy Cerinthe. It's a very easy plant to grow from seed. It will self-seed itself as well, so that means that it will come back year after year, even if you don't want it to. But it has the most unusual alien-like flower, blue foliage, and it grows about a couple of feet tall and creates lovely big clumps. And as I've said, the bees absolutely lap it up. So hopefully that gives you a few suggestions from not only our followers but also ourselves too. Why not jump onto social media, let us know which plants that you love, but also let us know which plants that you hate as well. I'd be really interested to know that. So over to Ellen and I, where we have a bit of a gossip. So see you later.
MP, your hair looks very cute.
Yeah, but my whole face and head looks like a hairy golf ball because I have my beard trimmed, but it's like it follows the shape of my face now, and I've now realised how globular my face is. I don't know if I'm particularly but I think because I haven't, like, my hair isn't tapered in or anything, it just looks like this big hairy ball.
I think it looks cute.
It looks like my hair on my head is like the same length as my beard, so it just looks like so straight. I don't like it.
I know, but you've had a tidy up, and that's really good. It's better than some, believe me.
Oh no!
My husband's hair is completely out of control. I actually, just talking about hair before we talk about gardening, my husband cut my hair because it's just got so long and straggly. He actually got like the kitchen scissors and cut the bottom, like
that's why you got a bob now.
The straggly bits off the bottom of my hair. But believe me, when I can get it cut properly, I will. But he done a really good job.
That's cool. I would always be terrified to cut my own. I just think I would have to assume that I would have a number one because I just know it would go wrong.
Cutting your own hair is different.
I'm A, not very patient, but B, I'm not very good at like looking at things in mirrors. Do you know what I mean? You know, when you have to judge the angle from the opposite way, it would be tragic.
I know. I think cutting your own hair is hard though. I've trimmed my own fringe. But other than that, I've just left it. But then it just got so straggly. I was like, this lockdown sucks. I need a haircut. The only hair I would trim myself was my pubes. What? That's not explicit content, is it?
Your lady garden.
Oh, Melon.
Anyway,
we're talking about beginner stuff today, so you have to share some of your first failures.
Well, I guess like the whole...
Will you admit to failures, Ellen Mary?
Yeah, well, I admit. Believe me, there's
a common urban myth that you're perfect.
I can categorically tell you that's not true. Yeah, no one's perfect, right? When I was a beginner gardener, there were certain terms, which is why we put them in this episode, that I really didn't understand, and it's just like thinning out. I always remember thinking, well, what do you mean? Like, what does thinning out mean? It's almost like when you have your hair cut. This is like a good link, accidentally. When it's quite thick, you sort of have it thinned out. So you go to the hairdressers and they'll say, do you want it thinned out? Like, take the bulk out of it so it, like, hangs better.
That makes sense in those terms.
Yeah, so, like, thinning out. And I just always remember being like, what, you just get scissors and, like, thin the foliage out or something? Like, I literally had no idea what it meant.
Well, this was why I started on my website. I don't know if you've seen. I've got what the fuck gardening. Everything I say is going to be bleeped out. Which does, it takes those terms, things like mulch, what was it, leggy, and I really want to extend that because it is, like, when you're new to it, there's so many phrases that are bandied about, and I think, obviously, I'm a bit different to you because these things were things I heard in my childhood, so, like, I was learning with my grandparents and hearing that word, all of these technical terms, and so, I probably learnt those more than real words.
That's why you have such a small vocabulary now.
Definitely. But also the pressure of having to do it the right way,
the pressure of having to do it the right way, I find really sad. And actually, sometimes when you see things on social media, and I quite often see like new people to gardening, and especially someone new who's taken on an allotment, they obviously look at some of the bigger accounts and assume that they have to do it that specific way. And then I feel like they must feel so pressured to make sure everything's perfect, or to make sure, I don't know, like the dahlias are cut, the chilies are topped out, and all of this stuff, which you like, I realise it could help, but it doesn't have to be like that. You don't have to pressure yourself to do everything the way that everyone else is doing it, or what you see online. Just take some hints and tips and education and inspiration and all of that, but just give it a go your own way. That's the best way to learn. Don't feel pressured to have everything perfect.
Not everything works the same way for everybody, No. I remember when I was running the trials at Thompson & Morgan, I did some almost like crazy everyday tests one year. And I did things like I grew some blueberries in normal compost.
Right.
What else? I didn't side shoot tomatoes, and had it obviously against a control. But that kind of showed that it isn't the end of the world if you're not going to plant your blueberry into acid soil, because if you plant it into a slightly bigger container anyway, then it's still in an amount of acid soil from the original pot anyway. So there you go. So you don't have to stress yourself about that. But also tomatoes, everybody's, you must side shoot them for better flavour, more vigour and stuff. And if you side shoot them, you will get fruit sooner. But it didn't, in my opinion, with what I tried, it didn't change the taste at all. What it did make was a plant that is quite unmanageable.
Right. Sure.
And it's this monster, and you've then got to delve in there and pick the fruit, and a lot of people don't like the smell of tomato foliage on their hands as well.
I don't.
Delving into there was not the best thing to do, but it was just really interesting, because it's, I wanted to kind of bust some of these myths, and I'd love to, do some more of those at some point.
I think it's a really good idea, and it's really helpful. And there was a whole thing last year about topping out chili plants. And I have grown chilies for probably now about 20 years, I guess. And I have never topped out my chilies ever. And I spoke, and I was like, wow, how have I missed this having to be done, And I actually spoke to someone who grows chilies commercially. And he said, it can help, but no, he's never done it, and he grows commercially. And then I felt like anyone new would have had the pressure to have had to have done this, perfectly, chop out all their chilies. If you're growing on an allotment especially, you have so much to do. There's so much to do all of the time, and it's enjoyable, but don't pressure yourself to think that you've got to do it the same as everyone else.
Exactly. So, and don't stress. And that's why when people watch Gardener's World, when it gets a bit too techy, people can be a bit turned off, because, you can just fudge your way through, and your plants will be perfectly happy most of the time anyway.
Fudge your way through.
Give right care, that doesn't mean they're going to do what you expect them to do.
Yeah.
I don't know. The other thing, when someone, and it's also advice on plants is so subjective anyway. Why has my plant got yellow leaves? I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Because it can be so many different. And the number of messages I get with this magic leaf, and they're kind of like, what's wrong with my plant? It's like, where do I start? It can be so much. It's just crazy.
Do you know, I'll tell you something that at the community garden, Grapes Hill Community Garden in Norwich, where I do some work, because we've had to cancel some of the events this year, we tried to look at other ways that we could kind of engage with the community and keep our volunteers still active, and stuff that we've been doing, sunflower growing competitions with the kids, with giving out pots to be painted, and some seeds to grow in the pots. And then when that's all done, we're going to put them up on the wall in the garden. It's going to be called the pandemic wall. And and then we also gave out lots of other random seeds, okay? And some of the seeds we gave out were poppy seeds. And so I say we, obviously I'm in America, so I haven't handed them out, but Rosie's handed them out. She's been amazing. I have to just say that. And someone messaged us on Facebook and said, none of my poppy seeds germinated. I am extremely disappointed.
But how do you know, A, if they did the right thing. B, like, yeah, it's very... And also, people forget that it's a living item, you know. It's not necessarily going to behave in the way you want to and stuff. Yeah, it's such a minefield. It really is, honestly.
We manage nature, but at the end of the day, nature will do what it wants to do, you know. And so you've got to just sometimes let it be. Let it be.
But it could be really militant.
Yeah. Oh, am I boring you? Michael's yawning
about
at the
that.
moment.
Oh, sorry. As I said it, I knew I was going to yawn as I said the word militant, and then I thought, I could probably pass it off as bad connection. But then my yawn became far too much, and then there was silent, and you were really supposed to pick up on militant a lot sooner, Ellen.
Oh, sorry.
You could have saved my whole yawn.
I'm so sorry. You know.
Oh dear. But you know what? When you yawn, it's actually a sign of being stimulated.
That happens sometimes when you start exercising. Well, honestly, when you start exercising, like after a few minutes, sometimes I yawn.
Really?
Yeah, I read about it.
I've heard that exercise makes you more active, but I've never tried. Do you still do some pop sugar? What's it?
Oh, pop sugar on YouTube is amazing. I love pop sugar. Do you know what?
Don't get bored of it.
No, because they are constantly uploading new workouts all of the time, and there's just so many on there that you can take your pick like every single day.
Does anyone see you do it?
Oh no, my husband, I guess.
But if nobody really sees you do it, you have to do it.
That's like if a tree falls in the woods, does it really fall? I don't have to do it, so quite frankly, I would say for about six or 7 weeks in the lockdown, I'd basically done probably about 2 workouts. I put on about 8 pounds. And so now I'm like, okay, now I really need to work out again. So now I'm doing...
You've always been relatively disciplined though, I think.
I have been. I'm always pretty disciplined with working out, but I haven't been during lockdown. It's weird because you're in all of the times, so you've got loads of time to do workouts, and I was just like, no, I'd rather eat biscuits.
Yeah, but I think there's no kind of explaining how people behave during like a lockdown period. So
no, but
I think be kind to yourself, you know.
Yeah. Our lockdown has not been kind to my hips, basically.
Oh my god.
Anyway, so yeah. Gosh, what are you doing next? Because you're going to need to stop yawning for it.
Oh, sorry. Just some work, and I need to do a little piece for BBC Radio Suffolk. Also need to record some stuff for the POD podcast.
I was trying to think what POD was. I was like, is this a new TV show I don't know about?
Loads of other little bits of content and stuff. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Very good.
Yeah, but I feel like it's really weird because like my work is always quite busy, like in the spring, like coming into like June, and June is when it then like would usually sort of tail off almost. But that's also the point where your kind of mind switches off to it a bit, and I think you need a bit of a break at that point as well. So I think I'm a bit there now, like I'm kind of fulfilling stuff, but not really like necessarily instigating new projects or feeling that way. Do you know what I mean? I'm just kind of maintaining. I need some extra zhuzh. Is that a word?
I think the time you're zhuzh. Is that it?
No.
Zhuzh?
No, not zhuzh. I don't need bitter gravy poured over.
I feel the same about
you know what?
July and August for me. So usually my work but really tails off at the end of June. July, so I do like loads of writing, loads of copywriting every single day, and I don't do any in July. So actually, the whole team that does the copywriting all basically takes pretty much all of July off. So I get like a whole big break then, and then August is one of my favourite months of the year because there's very little work on, and you get to kind of reap the rewards of everything that you've been doing. So especially on the allotment or in the garden, you can just, harvest and sit and enjoy and, be happy and take that break. So August is usually my month where July and August are really the months where I just chill out, and then it's back on it again for autumn, isn't it?
And at that point in August, all companies are quite quiet as well. Yeah. Most people are on holiday.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
So July and August are kind of quite relaxing months, but I get what you mean. So I've still got quite a lot of work for June, but it will tail off at the end of June. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, how wonderful.
How wonderful. So yeah, lovely chatting with you.
Sorry, I don't feel like in my bouncy ticker self today.
You're
Sorry.
really not.
I feel really lethargic.
But it's okay, you're allowed to be.
I'm sitting here and I'm thinking like, you're thinking like, I should be performing more, and then I'm like, sort of part of me is like, well, Ellen, I'm not a performing seal, and then the other half of me is, well, you're not being your usual self, Michael. What the hell?
I really need to crack the whip with you. Lockdown's affected you. Do you know what I think's happened to you? I know exactly what's going on here. You have entered suburbia. You have become suburban.
No, not at all. That'd be so disgusting. Oh dear. But yeah, I am in this house. I don't want to call it my house. I don't know why.
But
this house that I bought.
It's your house.
With garden attached, or garden with house attached. But there's too many cars in the street for me.
Well,
I wish people would like tuck their cars bigger into the driveways.
Oh my gosh, suburbia is definitely not for you.
Like neater.
Suburbia is not for you, Michael.
I wonder if I've got a kitchen island, so I wonder if I can become a desperate housewife.
Yeah, that's all you need. You can be
that would be interesting.
a Stepford wife. Hey, anyway, your garden's really exciting. I'm excited to see what comes of that.
Well, I was just going to get a designer in. But the weird thing is, the older I get, the more I discover about myself that I'm actually really indecisive.
No, I
know. But when I look back on so many things that have happened, like even big things in my life, they've mostly been things that are kind of like not happened anyway, but I hadn't had to. They've been engineered in a way that I didn't have to make the decision. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
It almost was a good idea. Like it made sense to do it rather than, I don't know how to describe that actually. I don't know.
Making sense. I think that's more like intuitive, isn't it? So you're kind of going through life intuitively. That's not a bad thing.
I don't think it's that I'm indecisive. I think it's perhaps that I get like bored of things very quickly. So it's like when, like for example, trying to find like, a sun lounger that I like. It's like, well, there's like, I want a certain one, and I got a kind of vision in my head, which is impossible to actually visualize. Which makes so much sense. And I just know once I get it, then I might decide a month or two after that I actually wanted the different one instead.
Oh my gosh. There's no hope
or
for
something
you.
else.
Now you've got your own home.
That's what then cripples me into like then doing nothing. I'm just like, I don't know.
Now you've got your own home.
And yeah, the more and more I'm being exposed as this dirty indecision maker.
Do you know what? Carry on as you are. That's what I think. We all go through life in our own ways. We all have different ways of dealing with things. That's what makes us all so special.
You still didn't tell me for our social media post what plant you hate.
I don't hate any plants.
Oh, stop being so virtuous.
It's not virtuous. I literally cannot think of one. The only plant I know that I hate is bindweed. I honestly cannot think of a plant that I hate. And since you asked me that this morning, it has been going over in my mind, and I cannot think of a plant I hate.
Well, it is hard when you're plant people, but I really don't like obviously different plants work in different settings, but I really don't like these golden choisias, like choisia sundance.
Why?
And they're almost too bright. I don't find that the bright gold goes with the white flowers.
What?
They're kind of a bit overused, and because they're used in lots of municipal areas, I kind of see them as a bit more low rent. Do you know what I mean?
Low rent.
So when their garden, I'm just like, you are a chav.
Oh, I like
It's how I feel, Ellen. Don't at me.
And we have a huge one down the community garden, and people always comment on it.
Oh, you could jump in it.
I'd actually quite like to jump in it. I have just thought of something that I don't like. I don't like buxus.
Oh.
It's just the most boring.
Oh, you said be controversial now.
It's boring. No, it's just boring. I find it boring.
I like it. I actually like it when it is grown as a shrub, not trimmed and pruned.
Okay.
I think it looks really nice that way. Yeah.
I can take or leave it.
And actually, there's two balls that have actually become misshapen, and I quite like them. They look really sexy that way.
Okay.
Yeah, don't know.
Well, it's like I don't hate it, but I could do without it. Yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah, they should do. What was this room 101 where you put this stuff on a conveyor? Should do that with like different plant things and tools and stuff, because everybody hates a rake, don't they? Or they sit gardening celebrities cross-legged on it on the conveyor belt and wheel them out of shot.
Oh, hey,
cool.
It's been very nice chatting with you again.
Oh, you too, darling. Get on the conveyor.
This episode of the Plant-Based Podcast is brought to you by our friends at Natural Grower. Launched in 2019, their award-winning liquid fertiliser and soil conditioner is made entirely from maize. Naturally rich in nitrogen, potash, phosphate and other trace elements that plants and vegetables love. It is approved by the Soil Association, Vegan Society and Organic Farmers and Growers. Visit naturalgrower.co.uk to nurture your soil and boost your plants and veg. Enter PBP15 for a 15% discount as a PBP subscriber.
Thanks for listening. You should now be at least 25% more obsessed by plants.
Please follow us on social media. You'll find us by typing in the Plant-Based Podcast.
We also have a fabulous website. Go to theplantbasedpodcast.net.
So tell your friends, leave a review. Why not write a letter to your local MP? Please spread the word about the Plant-Based Podcast.
Oh yes, see you next time, plant friends. The theme music for the Plant-Based Podcast is an excerpt from the song Grow by Mikey James, and our editing is done by Gareth Patch of Semi Echo.